In today's episode is just a little bit different. I sit down with Andy Arter and we put together a masterclass on recruiting best practices. How do you go out and find top talent? And it was so good that I couldn't help but want to share it with you, the Insurance Buzz community. And so that's exactly what we did today is we're going to be talking with Andy Arter, sharing the masterclass, giving you best practices on how to go out and find top talent, A players, and how to hire them for your organization. So with that being said, let's start the show. Are you a sales producer that constantly struggles with hitting your P&C goals every month? Are you tired of every single conversation you have with a new client always coming back to price? And if you don't save them money, you don't close them? That's exactly why we created the 0 to 6 figure insurance producer course to help you understand exactly how to have a conversation with a customer that guides them away from price, allowing you to actually help them out. We're going to teach you how to have that elevator pitch, how to get them interested in initially even having a conversation with you, how to build rapport and find commonalities, how to have a discovery conversation where you guide them away from price and actually figure out their problems, and then how to propose your presentation of always giving them more policies, more coverage, and educating them. And finally, how to confidently and professionally ask for the sell a minimum of 3 times in every single conversation, overcoming those most common objections that you're facing every single day. So if you're tired of struggling, if you want to be confident in what you do every single day, if you want to feel like you're actually making a difference and you're just not closing people because of price, this course is for you. Make sure you click the link below, check out the show notes. Other than that, let's get back to the show. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm so excited about today. We're going to be talking about all things recruiting, hiring, training, retaining top talent, making sure that you are able to crush it in 2024. My name is Michael Weaver, and we're here today with Andy Arter from Team Hired. For those that don't know myself, I'm the owner of Weaver Sales Academy, coaching and training organization for insurance professionals across the country, just like you. We currently work with 5,000 insurance professionals across the country. Andy, introduce yourself, my man.
Yeah, Michael, great to be here. So my name is Andy Arter. I serve as National Sales Director at a national insurance recruiting firm called Team Hired. We work with about 6,000 various agencies across the country, helping them recruit top talent, help them retain people, and even help with some licensing as well.
Heck yeah, Andy. Well, thank you so much for being here today and joining us. I'm super excited about today because recruiting, finding talent, agents being short-staffed, where are you finding talent? I think this is a conversation. Actually, I don't think this is a conversation that I have multiple times every single week. And so I appreciate you being willing to come on because you're really one of the experts in the field when it comes to recruiting and finding top talent. So let's just dive into this. So number one, where are you finding talent? Where should agents be looking to find talent right now to be able to fill their offices?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. So I think there's some things that should be staples in the business year round, 12 months out of the year, that, if you can come across the right person, right level of talent, right skill set, there's no bad time to hire the right person. I think anybody would agree that you'll make room for the right person when you come across them. So that's why I say I think recruiting should be an all the time thing. And it doesn't have to be thousands of dollars in recruiting expenses, job ads. Some of the staples and what I see, as very successful actions are that, number one, as an agency, if you can take time to actually have a brand presence and build an audience on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and not just for recruiting's sake, but in general, just have local community brand awareness and, start to create sort of that online presence, not the generic copy and paste pictures that come out, that you get from a company to post, but putting out a video, hey, meet my team. We're over here having a great time today, helping a lot of customers, or see some agents put out personal stories about themselves. Some of them are putting out their business plans for next year. Those sorts of things gather an audience outside of just the insurance industry. And so I think if you're an agent who's willing to build that social presence, or you already have it, it would be crazy not to put out consistent posts about the positions you're hiring for, because you never know who's going to see them, who's going to refer somebody over. A big mistake I see though is that when people post out a job post on social media, they don't always think about the audience that they're going after. And sometimes an agency will have 2,000 friends, but every other friend is an agency owner. What does every other agency owner want to do? They want to hire as well. So just sharing it with just your audience may not be enough. And that's why I think it's important on social to get creative. So a very successful action I've seen is actually finding a group or multiple groups that might have closer to the audience of the hire you're looking for. So, your ideal audience may not be other insurance agents. Who are your friends? Your audience might be people between the ages of 20 and 25 in your local community. What types of groups are they a part of? What organizations are out there that you can partner with and say, hey, is it a local, college or community college or something like that, where you can actually say, hey, could we put out an opportunity for an internship position in your Facebook group? And I just would stay on social as much as I could, because that's where people live, especially the younger generation. And it's low cost. It's just about you putting in the energy and effort. Another very successful avenue would be internal, asking your team members if they could go out and create some noise and some buzz about the position. But instead of just doing it in the way that, hey, I'll pay $100 if you do it, what I would do is I would run some sort of a contest and actually have the team maybe make a video talking about their experience working at the agency and posting that out. And I would just incentivize that. Hey, if you're willing to make a video and talk about your experience working here, or put out an article or something that is like a written testimonial about what this agency has done in your life. And hopefully, right, you have the right culture to where people are going to jump on that and say, yeah, I'd do anything for you. This has been a life-changing opportunity. A lot of times that's the best way to get internal referrals, is not just them maybe calling one friend and, are you interested? And no, I'm not interested. And now that whole project is dead. Like, I put out an article because we had an internal contest at Team Hired 3 years ago. And I just told my story, how I ended up at Team Hired, the company culture, how much I love working for the ownership. And I had a long lost friend read the article 3 months later and then call me and say, hey, do you guys have openings? I read something about your company. So sometimes you'll get those referrals for hiring, not because you're asking for hires, but because your team is preaching about how awesome it is to work there, your culture, how much they love it. And then other people see that and they're like, what do you have going on over there? Like, people don't always want to be bugged with like, we're hiring. Do you want to come interview at our company? Our owner needs to hire. Instead, it's like your team's just screaming from the rooftops, I love working here. This is awesome. I'm happy. And then that's going to be what attracts somebody, right? It's kind of like that catch 22. Like, if you're too direct with it, it may put people off. But if you're more just talking about how awesome it is and you're giving value, that's when you can attract some people in. So without touching money, those are two areas I would be.
I love that. And you hit on two things I want to just go back and cover real fast. So you hit on videos, which is something that I'm like, dang, that is a brilliant idea, because that's organic. It's going to make sure that you are reaching a larger audience. Also, posting those types of videos, whether you yourself are talking about the position or your team and maybe the fun they're having. But either way, that's going to show a side of you versus just a typical like post of, we're hiring, here's what we're looking for. That's a really, really great idea. I love the Facebook group idea. And then the last thing that you just hit on was fun, like the culture, what you like about what you do, especially your team, if they're going to do this. And everybody likes a competition, but even yourself, if you're the agency owner, like, you should be posting things every week around your office culture. So pictures of your team, pictures of maybe events going on, like right now with the holidays. Like, are you giving away things to the community? Are you like adopting families for Christmas? These are all really great opportunities to post and really show what you're all about as a culture, how you're supporting the community. Because if you have somebody that's a really great employee and they're working at a place that feels like a funeral home all the time, and they're like, dang, Andy's team, they are crushing it. Like, they're having fun. They're making a difference. It seems like they're making lots of money. Like, I'm going to go check out what they got going on. Like, Courtney and I always say, like, fun attracts money. Like, the more fun you have with what you're doing, the more money you're going to make, and you're going to retain team and attract a player. So I love that you brought all that up.
100%. And that's it right there. And as our founder Dave says all the time, that old baseball movie, the quote, build it and they will come. Like, we're big believers in that. You build the right culture, but if you keep that culture behind closed doors and nobody gets to see it, then nobody knows, right? If they don't walk through your front office doors. So you're opening your doors up to the world when you go on social. And something interesting that we've been doing as a project for some of our clients is we'll create a landing page specifically for the job or the opening. And a landing page is so much different than a job description, right? A job description is static. And there's a reason why the best marketing companies in the world use images and they use landing pages, because you can tell a story and you can position the offer in a way that's different than just written text. So if you're relying just on written text and you don't have something like a landing page in place, the way a landing page can be used is you can go on to Wix, Webflow, wherever. They have templates. You don't have to be a coder or a data scientist to build a landing page. They have drag and drop templates. Heck, I'll go on a call with you and I'll show you for free how to set up a landing page for a job post. But what you could do is have several videos from your team members giving a 60-second testimonial about why they love working there. Have a testimonial from a client about how easy it was to deal with your office. You have a video on there talking about the experience. Have a picture of the company dog. Have a little story about the company history. Have big, bulleted, bold, lines about, like, not just like the job description, but fantastic opportunity for upward mobility. Sick of making less than 50,000 a year? Join our team and see how to break into the 60,000 plus club. Meet so-and-so who used to be a sales team member, now owns their own agency and is on track to make multiple six figures next year. We can help you have a path to agency ownership. And you have all these big stripes on it, right? And then your call to action is like, schedule a Zoom call with our company. Like, click on this link and schedule your interview now, or whatever that looks like. But that's another great way to easily have your team share it out. You can make a QR code that goes directly to that. And you could hold a career event for free at your office, just an open house. Come meet our team, come see what career opportunities we have. And you could be passing out that QR code and you don't even have to interview people at the event. I just had a State Farm agent do this down in Texas. And she had a big open house and food, and she had clients and she had prospective candidates. All the while, she's just giving out a flyer to candidates. Hey, scan this QR code or go to this link and you can schedule an interview directly with my team. And so she didn't have to use that open house as the serious meeting. She used that to like impress people and show them, like, look how awesome it would be to work here. And then she converted people from that event to a landing page that then they can book in an interview. So there's just more creative ways to go about it than just relying on text.
Yeah, I love that. And to add to your idea about the landing page and setting up an interview, one thing that we've implemented that has worked really well to at least get to siphon through candidates is we've actually made them send us a 1 to 2 minute video, kind of just introducing themselves, why we should select them for the position, why they're interested in the position. And by doing that, we've set up hurdles before hiring to where when we get in front of somebody on a Zoom call or an in-person interview, we've already done our due diligence. We've looked at a 1 to 2 minute video that you can tell a lot about somebody, how they present themselves, their communication skills, how they're showing up. And so that would be something I would add that we've implemented here recently, and it's worked really, really well, which actually leads me into a question for you, Andy, is because I get this question a lot from agents, like, should I try to attract quantity, like thousands of people into one job posting and then try to navigate who's the best for the job? Or should my job posting be like trying to navigate the quality versus quantity? Like, let's try to find that right person. So instead of 1,000, maybe you only have 50 candidates. Like, what's your opinion on that?
Yes and yes. Okay, so I got a double yes for you, because yes, I think you need to be out there and exposing yourself to volume, mainly because that next person, if you knew who they were, you would have already hired them. You don't know who they are, what walk of life they're coming from, who's going to catch you and hit you out of left field. And you're like, I never expected to hire. Like, I just had an agent who hired a baker from Tim Hortons. She's come on board. She's become his #1 sales producer. He's in North Carolina. He's like, Andy, you guys never exposed me to this idea of talking to a lot of people. I would have tried to get it perfect with the job post and the resume, and I would have never called her back. But her personality, the way that she jived with my team, her work ethic, her life story, and where she is as a single mother, as somebody who's just looking for that opportunity, I couldn't say no to her. And he's crushing it with her, and she's super happy. She's almost doubled her income in the last year. And that's an example of why I wouldn't try to use documentation or surveys alone to narrow down to like, maybe I only want to talk to 1 to 2 people. There's really nothing to protect yourself against. The worst that could happen is you have a 2-minute conversation with somebody and you realize they're not a fit and you move on, but at least you gave yourself the opportunity. So I think part of what we believe in is partly it is volume, but there's things you can do to control the quality of that volume. So it's like, you don't, in our world, we don't want to trade off one or the other. It's like, yes, you need volume. Yes, you should be talking to 10, 15 people before making a hiring decision, right? Give yourself an opportunity to meet with multiple. Don't get hung up on the first person you meet and, oh my gosh, they're the only one I can hire. But on the other hand, like, you don't need to talk to, 100% of candidates that are like operating forklifts or doing trade work that's really not going to be a fit for maybe this role right out of the gate. So to limit that, I think what you need to do is be very strategic about how you position your job ads in that, yes, you want to attract people to the position, but you also want to include a little bit of language about the non-negotiable expectations of this type of role. So if I'm hiring for a sales position, I'm going to say may require 100 plus cold calls a day, outbound calls per day, may require working after hours, may require traveling to local events and presenting our solution to the local community, includes potential high levels of rejection, but also has high reward levels with an almost uncapped earning potential, right? You can earn between $40,000 and $100,000 a year in our office. So lots of earning potential, but I'm slipping in some of those bullet points that if I'm a service person or a non-sales person, hopefully I would read those bullet points and it would freak me out so much that I would never apply. And you'll still get people that just click and apply to 10 jobs at a time. They didn't read it anyway. They're just looking for a job, and you're going to be able to weed those out later. But I think you can be more strategic with the ads. And people get a little afraid, Michael, I think, about running an ad that's language is a little too strong. It's like, well, if I really position it in that niche of a person, I'm going to lose out. So generally what happens is people will only make the time to post maybe 2 job ads. And because of that, they want them to sort of cover a broad base of people and be very almost generic to a degree. Like, I don't want to scare too many people away. Let me make this super juicy and attractive. But what we found you can do that I think is a better way to control the quality, to your point of what's coming through that pipeline, is position yourself with maybe 10 or 20, or I'm going to be crazy here, 30 or 40 job ads, or have somebody like Team Hired or somebody else manage those for you. But post yourself with multiple ads and be very specific on each one. So instead of trying to do 2 big general ads, put out a bunch of ads. If you were going to spend $1,000 across one ad, spend $100 across 10 ads. And then the ones that don't work, you just take them down. And the ones that are getting the right type of applicants, you keep them up. So most people won't split test job ads, but I highly recommend that, or working with a company that'll do it for you. Because like, what great marketer is going to go advertise your insurance agency and not split test? Like, no great marketing firm would advertise a policy with only one ad set. They'd go put out 8 or 10 or 12 tests, and they'd look at what's gathering the right type of prospect. No different on the candidate side. You just got to think of candidates as leads, and then all of a sudden you're all great salespeople. So you can just use your skill set you already have in acquiring like leads for a policy, and just transfer that skill set and start thinking about candidates like leads. And I think that'll change maybe the way you run ads, and you could put out a lot more ads and then just like measure them and see what works.
Yeah, that's a really great. I love that idea to have multiple ads, because it's just like when you're running, it's actually when you're running like an ad for a product. Like, you're going to figure out what ad works and which ad doesn't, and get rid of the ones that don't, and keep the ones that do hit. So, and I think that even when an agent is working with a company like a Team Hired, that it's not going to be a bad thing to also do their due diligence on the outside, to maybe have $100 ad spend a week or a month on like a LinkedIn, to just find those candidates. So then you have multiple streams of trying to find, because like, I think that your money as a business owner should always be going into recruiting. You always have to be finding new talent and training. Like, because if you hire the talent but they don't know how to sell, they're not going to do good. Like, you could find the best person in the world, but if you don't bring them in and have a systemized onboarding and training process, like, literally they're going to struggle and they're not going to make it. And the insurance industry is hard. All right. And so I think those 2 key areas, when looking at growing and scaling a business, a profitable business, you have to always be recruiting. You have to always be training. Nothing else really matters. Like, if you get down to it, like, you can be spending thousands of dollars on marketing, But if you don't have enough people to sell or do the leads, great. And if you don't have the right people that know how to sell, it's going to be a waste of money. So I love that though,
Amen.
man. That's a really, really great tip. So tell me, like, from a timeline standpoint, what you're seeing on your end, because you deal with thousands of candidates a day, you're working with thousands of agents across the country. When you find that right person, what can you expect from a timeline standpoint to, okay, here's an offer, let's get licensed, let's start?
Yes. So yeah, we do thousands of jobs. And so what I'm about to say is directly from like frontline experience, not like out of a textbook. This is working with hundreds of agencies and seeing pretty much exactly how these different types of efforts line up, how long they take. And I think the best way to answer it is to categorize the type of hire that an agency is going after and how that affects their timeline. So category number one, I'm looking for somebody who's local. I'm not going to hire remote. I need them to be here Monday through Friday for whatever reason. I want them to be part of my culture. I don't like the remote piece. It's too much work for me right now. I have walk-in traffic. I just like the in-office team culture, like whatever your reason is. Cool. So I want to hire local, non-negotiable. Next, I'm open to hiring somebody outside the industry as long as they have the right skill set and personality. So let's say I'm hiring for a sales role or a retention specialist. So I'm going to go after people with that skill set. And if I'm lucky enough to find somebody who's already got their license, who doesn't have too many bad habits, and isn't asking me for $1 million a year, of course I'll entertain that person all day long, of course. But I'm not going to bank everything on hiring a local licensed person. I'm going to hire from anywhere. And if they're not licensed, I'm going to give them support and help them get licensed. So if we go that route, whether you use a service or not, once you have a chance to go out and meet with about, say, 10 to 15 candidates, which if you're using like somebody like Team Hire, that'll take about 1 to 2 weeks. If you're really efficient yourself, probably about the same. If you kind of do it like most agencies where recruiting's not their full-time job and you only have time for maybe a couple interviews a week, it'll stretch that timeline out. So that's where like you have to think about your time and the value of it. But let's just say in the perfect world, you could get through 10 or 15 interviews in 2 to 3 weeks. Then what we see as a reasonable timeline to get somebody licensed is no longer than 2 weeks. And that's from experience working with a lot of agencies. If you send somebody into the abyss to get their license on their own, and what I mean by that is go get your license, and when you have it, give me a call and you have a job, you have more than the 50% chance of losing them. And the likelihood they finish it in less than 2 weeks is less than 30%. So if you're going to do that strategy, I would highly recommend against it because you've already spent time and money finding the person. Now that you have their attention, I think what you could really focus on is get them one of your managers, get them a service, get them something to where they'll have somebody to talk to every day. Somebody who's going to walk them through the training, help them through their questions on licensing, keep them motivated, keep you up to speed on what training they've completed. And from what we've seen, there's about a 91% shot at getting somebody licensed in 2 weeks, at least on the property and casualty, if you give them a daily mentor and you actually purchase the material for them. In other words, I'm not going to start day one, oh, by the way, go buy a $300 training program. I'm going to say our company does paid training because we have that type of culture. We invest in you, and we're going to invest in you from day one because we got you a mentor and we got you material, and we're going to give you 14 days to go pass this thing. And by the way, we're going to pay an extra $500 when you pass it, just as a congratulations for being licensed in insurance. So you make it this big deal. It's like Amazon or Chase Bank. They're going to train their people. So you come in, you spend 2 weeks on it. And from what we've found, if they're in the 9% that fails in those 2 weeks, then they get another attempt unless they've totally given up. But now you've flushed somebody out who wasn't going to be a fit anyway in 2 weeks instead of a month, which is a good thing as well. So you can revisit the hiring again. So if you're going that route, Michael, I'd say 4 to 5 weeks between the hiring and the licensing before they can go into binding authority and kind of start. So if somebody were to start hiring January 1, you're expecting, if you're doing local non-licensed person that needs trained, they're probably starting with you, beginning middle of February. And then you've got your ramp up time learning the State Farm system or learning the Allstate system or learning the Farmer system or whatever you're on. So
Yeah.
the other would be local licensed. And this would be for an agent that says, I only want to hire licensed people and I only want to hire local. If you're going to go company specific, so in other words, if I'm a State Farm agency and I want to hire from another State Farm agency locally, right? Unless you're going to go poach people, which I'm not a big believer in, but if you're going to go poach people, it might be a little different story. But if you're going to do it the other way, which is I'm going to put out posts, I'm going to be on social, I'm maybe going to message some people, and just open the opportunity. And if they want to walk through the door, they can walk through the door. If you're going company specific, you're probably looking right now at a 3 to 6 month timeline to really find that A player who's not leaving for the wrong reasons. Like, you don't want to pick out somebody else's person that they just let go because of ethical issues, underwriting issues, work ethic issues, work on time issues. So, if you really want to find an A player from another agency within your company who will come in at the right pay rate locally, it's a long tail from what we've seen, months and months. I've spent even 8 months on a job like that for an Allstate agent in Detroit. On the other hand, if you're open to other companies, I'll hire from Geico. Maybe they're highly trained. They'll make a lot of calls for me. Yes, I'll have to train them into the captive model, but their work ethic and training is great. Or maybe I'll hire from a Liberty Mutual. Or maybe I'm a farmer's agent and I'll hire somebody from State Farm or Allstate because I know they got good training. Like, if you're open to that, you might be able to shorten that timeline to like 60 to 90 days for a local licensed person. But most offices right now are running so hard that I don't know if that timeline is very realistic for many offices, unless they just start looking now and they know that, hey, over the next year, we might hire a couple local licensed people who are really good. So one alternative I've seen is to take that exact same requirement of licensed, but then go remote. And I just worked with a State Farm agent in Kansas doing this. He was very successful. He didn't want to do it at first because he's like, how do I manage them? How do I make them part of my culture? And we walked them through, here's how you set up a live Zoom meeting room that your remote employee is on all day long. Here's how you set up a compensation plan. Here's how you track their daily calls. Here's the type of compensation you put in place for somebody who's already written business. They've already been in the industry. They can show you a sales report where they're writing 30, 40 grand a month for this other agent who will not give them a remote opportunity. And you're going to be their hero. So you're going to come in and offer them this position where they walk downstairs, sit at their computer and do the job. On that, I'd say if you're working with the right company on it, or you're able to go out and write the right type of job posts, probably hire a licensed remote person before Christmas. It's a very quick turnaround. They're out there. There's way more licensed remote A players right now than there are agencies willing to hire remote. So if you're willing to learn that space and jump into it, you just found a licensed producer in less than 2 weeks. And there's going to be some office in your community who's still looking in July for that person. And you could hire 5 before then. So that timeline is very, very different. And it's not for everybody, I don't think, but for the right agents with the right structure, it's been very exciting to see agents hire that way as well. So those are kind of the 3 timelines. It's like 5 weeks for my non-licensed local, 3 to 6 months for a very specific local licensed hire, 3 to 4 months for somebody who's less specific but licensed, and then a couple weeks for a remote licensed person.
Yeah, I love it. That's really great information. I had a couple things come up to my mind that we've also implemented, which we learned one from you, was group interviews. Like, why, if you had 14 or 15 interested candidates, I, as a business owner or whoever your hiring manager is, I'm never going to recommend you sit down with 14 or 15 people, even do 14 or 15 phone interviews anymore, even if they're only 15 minutes. Like, let's schedule a group interview of like either one of 15 or maybe one of 7 and one of 8, and actually see how they show up to that call so that you can spend your time in an efficient manner. Because right when somebody shows up to a call, you're going to be able to basically eliminate about half of the people on that call, in my experience. So if you set up the hurdle of, hey, send me a video, and then, hey, out of the people that are interested, we're going to get together as a group and have a conversation. Now you're narrowing down the field. You're being efficient with your time. You're finding the best talent that you're talking to. Then you're going to schedule that one-on-one Zoom call or one-on-one interview, depending on where you're at in the area and if it's local or not local. So that was one thing that came to my mind of you saying all that. The other thing is, if you are acquiring talent from other companies, I love the remote. And I think that if you're a business owner right now and you haven't tried remote and you're considering it, I would tell you to just do it. There is a lot of talent out there that is wanting to work remote, that has experience, that can give you the production. Like, hey, I have a history of producing this. Yes, you're going to have to grow as a leader. You're going to have to learn how to manage a remote position. You're going to have to learn how to train a remote position. Hey, I can help you out with that, by the way. But you're going to have to set up what it looks like in a remote position, build a culture around remote. But if you can figure that out, think about the growth you go through as a leader, and then the ability you have to grow your agency at an even faster pace, because now you have people that are in office and remote. And I just believe that the way the world is going, I mean, more and more data I look at, more and more people are wanting to work remote or at least in a hybrid fashion. I think as a leader and a business owner thinking forward into the future, I think that you're going to have to be able to offer remote positions to be able to really grow and make the most out of your opportunity.
100%. And I talked to a company who helps with the out of state EIN numbers and state and local tax structure for out of state employees. And I said, how many state farms alone have you worked with that have hired out of state, not even in state remote, out of state remote employees? They said 850. That number kind of blew my mind. There's a large number of agencies doing it, and I guarantee they're all either terrified to do it the first time, but they took the leap, or they've been doing it for years and it works well for them.
Oh, and it's scary. Look, I'm not saying it's not scary, and I'm not saying it's not. You're going to learn a lot. Right now, what we do, we have a completely remote team. There's been a lot of learning lessons along the way since we went completely remote, but it's made me a better leader. It's made me a better coach. It's made me a better manager. Our team, it's forced us to figure out ways to build a tighter culture within each
Mm-hmm.
other, even in a remote position. And so if you're really looking to, hey, how can I maximize my opportunity for the foreseeable future? I think that you have to take this challenge head on. And I think that you have to be willing to find top talent in a remote position and grow as a leader, grow as a manager to be able to grow your company the way that you want to grow it.
100%. And here's a really easy break in, Michael, to be able to get comfortable with it before you're comfortable with it. I just did this with an agency, came and met with her. She said, what do I need to do to get ready to hire remote people in January? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm taking the leap. And we said, first and foremost, go get yourself your own Zoom meeting room that has breakout rooms. Get your entire internal team on Zoom today. And she's like, why? We're like, because you want to get them used to being on video. They're sitting in separate areas of the office anyway. Would it hurt in the corner to be able to see each other, be able to share that energy? It's like, yeah, I could do that. Okay, good. So set that up, get your team acclimated to it between now and the end of the year. Then when you go out and you hire that remote employee, on Monday morning, they jump in at 9 a.m. with the rest of the team. Your team's been meeting that way anyway. And all of a sudden, oh, guys, we have another team member. And it's just like they're right there with your team. They can ask each other questions, they can role play. So you could do that now. You could put your entire team on video, and it's really cool to see offices do it because they're really in touch. It's like they're running a warship, and they can tap into team members a lot faster.
Yeah, man, I love that idea because when you think of the insurance space right now, carriers are encouraging their agency owners to have multiple locations. When you have multiple locations, you can still act as one team. Actually, the best agents out there are acting as one team from my experience. And that's exactly what they're doing. They have a Zoom set up to where everybody acts as one team. They're talking to each other, they're communicating with each other. You can build a great culture around that because you're seeing each other every day. You're even going to have like your water cooler talk, your coffee talk, man. Like you can't just be working all day long. Like, and then when you see somebody make a sell, you're like, let's go, baby. Like, congrats. Like, that's just the way of the future and the way of the world. So I love that you're touching base on that. Are you an insurance agent struggling to meet your sales goals? Do you feel overwhelmed and disorganized, making it hard to keep track of your leads and close deals? If so, our sales training program is the solution you've been looking for. Our program is designed specifically for insurance agents who need help improving their sales skills and increasing their productivity. We understand that the insurance industry, it can be highly competitive, fast-paced, which is why we've created a program that will help you stay ahead of the curve and close more deals. We understand that your time is valuable, which is why we've created a program that is flexible and convenient. You can access the sales training lessons and coaching sessions from anywhere at any time so you can fit your training around your busy schedule. Don't let the lack of sales training hold you back from achieving your full potential as an insurance agent. Sign up for our sales training program today and start closing more deals, generating more revenue, and achieving your sales goals with more confidence. There's so much more to the program. So if you're interested in joining the program that's helped over 10,000 insurance agents nationwide, visit our website, www.weaversa.com, or send me a text directly at 816-727-7610 with any questions to find out more. I want to kind of go in a direction now of, okay, great. So we found the talent. How are we going to train and retain the talent?
You're going to hear this from me for the next 20 years, I'm sure. It's all we talk about at Team Hired. But you know, our founder, Dave, at one time had a $25 million a year Allstate that he built from scratch. And when he walked away from that, he had a lot of questions from a lot of agents. Hey, what'd you do to get there? And number one thing is like, the people in my business were the heartbeat of the business. Without them, couldn't do anything else. So I focused all my energy on my people, training them, developing them. And really, when he broke it down to a science, and I've learned this to be true for years and years now, there's really only three reasons why you lose somebody. Either A, they leave because of money, right? The compensation is off. Number two, they leave because they outgrow the organization. So there's no career path for them. And it was never presented, or at least there was no mentorship to help get them into that agent aspirant, that protege program, whatever it is, or upper management, senior producer, whatever that advancement looks like. And then number three, and I'm gonna loop in training with this, is culture. And from a culture standpoint, if you ask Dave, like, what's culture in his agency when he was, cranking out that large of numbers, or I talk to any agent right now, part of that's going to be, what does the office look like? Does it smell good? Are desks clean? Like, all of that matters a lot, right? But on the other side of that, it's like, what are we doing as a team to support each other to get better every day? And in Dave's office, what that meant was having a breakout meeting every day at 1:00 with some food and doing some role play of the toughest objections they had gotten that day and kind of shaking it off middle of the day and getting back on the phones and being able to train and develop. And then they subscribed to every training program available and had their team going through the videos, joining the webinars, just immersing them in all of these successful actions to accelerate their growth. And from a cultural standpoint, nothing builds a better culture than a team who acts as professionals versus amateurs, meaning they train every day. An amateur just says, I'm good, right? But a professional says, we're never going to be there to where I won't practice. Tom Brady's always, maybe that's a bad name to use on a webinar, but Tom Brady's always going to show up to practice. Just because he's Tom Brady doesn't mean like I don't show up to practice. He'd be an amateur at that point. So you train every day, and it's a professional organization. But guess what? It's an organization where we have winners. We're making more money than we ever have before. We're helping more people than we ever have before. We lift each other up. When there's a problem, we bring solutions. Anybody who's on that train and willing to put in the work is just going to go up in life. And I think that's where, like, when you start talking about what would happen if you didn't role play with your team, if you didn't have them participating and learning new things every day, if you didn't have them getting outside influence and they just walk through the front doors, there was no career opportunity, the compensation was about 20% too low for the market. Like, you start to think about, like, why did I lose somebody? Well, it could be any one of those three. It could be a combination of just one of them that wasn't a fit. But it's a really easy way that we talk about it at Team Hired, Michael. It's just the 3 C's: compensation, culture, and career path. If you hire the right person and you get all three of those consistently right, you should be able to retain over 80 or 90%.
I love that, man. And I obviously agree, because in my experience, I would say you always have like when you look at the top 10% of a company, all right, the bottom 90% typically isn't training at all. Like, they just hire people, they hope they just figure it out. And then you've got your 10% to really that 3% that, hey, we'll train, we'll get them up and going, we'll invest in them in the beginning of their career, but then they become tenured team members, they know what to do, and the training can stop, and we'll just go about our day, and hopefully they continue to hopefully get better. And then you have the top 3% of agents in every company, no matter, it doesn't matter, State Farm, Farmers, Allstate, they train every single day. They are investing in their team with maybe one, maybe multiple programs, training, coaching organizations, going to workshops, showing up to webinars like this. Like, training and getting better is part of their game plan, their business plan, because when you are consistently trying to get better and take things to the next level, you're going to build a culture around that. If you build a culture of, oh, we only have to get this good to be able to perform, that's a stagnant culture. And if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And I think that that's the difference. Like, if you really want to look at it between like the real top players, those agents and producers, they're just knocking it out of the park every year, making lots of money, helping lots of people, it's because they're consistently and continually getting better and investing in themselves, their teams, and their agencies, period. Like, I don't know if there's anybody out there that would argue that point. Like, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Like, that's just my mindset. We invest heavily into our teams, and that's kind of what you're hitting on right now too. And I love comp, culture, career path. That's really, really great, because if people can make money, they're going to be happy. If you have a culture that individuals are showing up to every day, they're feeling fulfilled in what they're doing, they enjoy coming into the workplace or remote environment, and they feel confident in what they're doing as well, just not fulfilled, but confident, man, that's a culture that is going to be really hard to leave. And then when you look at career path, whether they want to move up or whether they want to maybe own their own agency one day, you're hitting the nail on the head with those. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's something I've seen time and time again. Now, some agents will say, "Well, what about just making a bad hire?" It's like, well, what can I do with a bad hire? If they weren't the right fit from the beginning, like I can do all those things and then I waste a bunch of money. And I think from that standpoint, you also just got to look at the risk reward factor and understand that there are averages across the industry. There's an average retention rate of about 37 to 40%, depending where you survey, for an average, right? Which I think is pretty bad. Like if you think about it, hiring 3 people and only retaining one, it's pretty. You'd have to be doing a lot of things wrong, but there's a lot of agents doing a lot of things right. So it's like, those
Right.
people are going to gravitate eventually to the good agents. Now, when you look at more of like the types of clients I think that work with you guys, the ones that work with Team Hired who are investing in their company, they're investing in their team, you can easily see agencies retaining at 65%, 75%, some of the best out there, 80, 85%. But, some of that is going to be, there's big companies, big agents that are willing to have a pension plan. I've seen agents with 401ks, pension plans, retirement, like all this stuff. They're playing the let me pay you for retention game, which is great. And I think it definitely helps them. But not everybody can do that or have like the big health benefits in place or things like that. So it's like, well, how do I get from a 30 to 40% retention up to like at least the 65 to 75? And it's literally like what you're talking about. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's a decision and an investment from that owner that's like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to change people's lives. Like when you come work for my agency, you're going to leave a different
Right.
person. And I think when it becomes about you thinking as a human being, what type of leader would you have wanted when you were 20 years old and you got hired? Like, would you want that person to like not answer questions and be very like guarded and not have an open door policy and not really pay you quite enough and kind of beat you up when you do a bad job, but not uplift you and keep you isolated from the team and use fear tactics and, you'll get there eventually, young kid, but never talk about a career path. You start to play that game out, Michael, like the opposite of what we're talking about. It's like, well, no wonder. Like if you're doing those things, you're going to lose them. But if you can just visualize, like, look, it's my mission to actually serve this person. I know I'm the owner, but I'm going to serve my team. That makes
That's right.
you all know how to serve. You serve your clients every day. So if you could serve your team, it's like they're going to be loyal to you. They're going to feel that. And you can feel the difference between somebody who's selfishly asking you to do something because they're, as an owner, only thinking about next month's profitability and they'll do anything, say anything to get there versus somebody who's like, look, I noticed you're having an off week. How can I help you achieve your goals? Where's your head at? What can I do for you? What resources do you need? Okay, cool. You need that. What else do you need? Is there anything I can get the team to
Mm,
do for you? And I hear
yeah,
this from Dave's a great example, and that's why I can speak to it. That if I've ever had an off week, off day, it's not about like, well, you better get that number on track so we get here. It's like, what's going on? How can I help you? How are things personally? How are things professionally? Where's your head at? And sometimes it'll be you hearing a problem from a team member like that, and you might have the answer to be able to mentor them and you might not always have the answers and you might have to just be aware of that what's going on and it can help you structure maybe the day different or what team member you sit them next to. But I think being in tune with your business like that will also really help you with retention. And so it's like it's so many different variables, but at the end of the day, if you don't develop them and you don't listen to them, like they might as well be gone.
that's right. And I love that you bring up the one-on-ones. I think that that is critical. I think that everybody should, if you're an agency owner, you either have to have a manager, you have to do it yourself. You need to be meeting with your team one-on-one. I believe once a week for 30 minutes.
Mhm.
And here's the kicker, it doesn't need to be about business. It needs to be about what's going on, their personal life. Like, how can you help them achieve the goals that they have, that they want to achieve in life? How can you just help them? Like, what are they going through? How can you be there for them? Because life is not always easy. And if life isn't going good, their career's not going to go good. And so if you can be that person for them and have a culture around support and guidance and hey, we're here for you, just not from a professional standpoint but a personal standpoint, you're gonna develop a culture of a team that will run through a brick wall for you because you should also be willing to run through a brick wall for them as well. And so I love that you brought that up, Andy.
Can I flip the script and ask you a question?
Yeah, man, what's up?
How important is it as an agency owner to get in the trenches? And how often should you get
Mm,
in the trenches and maybe get on a phone and make a tough call in front of your team or lead by example? And are you ever better than that? Is there ever a point where you step away from that, or should that be an all the time thing? Is it non-existent? Like,
That's a really, really great question. And so I would tell you, I personally am never going to be one that's scared to get back in the trenches and lead by example. Now, there are going to be agency owners out there that maybe 20 years in, maybe they're the true CEO of their business and they never even go into their business. Great. You set it up. So you probably have somebody in the office that would be willing to step in, hopefully your lead person in the agency. But I think that being willing to lead by example goes a long ways no matter where you're at in your career. I mean, you even see the guys like Grant Cardone today still jumping on the phone and being like, "Hey, give me that. I'll close this guy." Like, I think that there's something to be said about that. And you're also showing them that you're willing to do and know how to do the job that you're asking them to do, which I think goes a long, long ways. And so my answer to that is hell yes. Like, I'm always going to be willing to jump in the trenches. I'm going to be there. I'm going to show my team that I'm there for them. I want them to be successful, and I'm going to be right there beside them, helping them any way I can.
that's awesome. That says a lot. And I appreciate that perspective on it as well, because I do see sometimes right out of the gate, an agency owner may still be trying to, you know, maintain whatever lifestyle they had like 2 years ago. But if the economy got tougher, if rates changed, if we need to roll our sleeves up, like I've seen agents either A, continue fishing at the lake 3 days a week, and they could do that 5 years ago and things were really easy, but now they can't do it anymore. They continue to, and then their team just is like on an island. But then I've seen the agents make the decision to get back in the trenches after being removed from it for a while. And I think part of that can be, you know, also looking at it from this perspective, if you have too much to where you can't be involved with your team, it's probably time to hire a virtual assistant for yourself, or hire some other team member. If you're finding yourself doing so much service work that you can't even do a morning meeting with your team, it's like, yes, that service work is very important, but there's somebody else you can hire to do that for you, so you can get back into leading your team and being present with them. Because I see it in teams sometimes where even the office manager gets too busy, things are too crazy, and they're just short one person. And it starts to divide people because that leadership falls apart. They're not present with their team as much. They're so busy working that they don't even have a chance to like keep the troops rallied. And it's like you're at war, but the general disappeared and you're all running around the field with guns and you're like, what do we do? You know, so it's
Yep.
very, very important. I think, like, listen to what you just said, that I'm going to take that back, and that's impactful.
I am as big a proponent as anyone out there about building a life, the dream life, and then creating a business or career that supports that. And look, if you're an owner of a company and you're out fishing 3 days a week, I think that's great. But you have to have the people in place that are going to run the business and be there for you. Your leaders that you need in the office or in the business, you have to be able to hire them so you can buy your time back. Like, ultimately, like, I'm not going to tell somebody, hey, you shouldn't be in there. But if you don't have the right leaders in place to make sure that your team is taken care of and you're not doing anything about it, that's where I would have a problem. And I'd be like, yo, you need to get your shit together, man. Like, you need to, like, you got to get back in the business and get your team, because or else your team's going to leave you. Like, the insurance market is really, really hard right now. And I think that's also one thing is being there, showing empathy. And even if you are somebody that maybe you're fishing 3 days a week or whatever, you can still jump on a Zoom call with your team once a week or once every other week and build rapport with them. See what's going on. How can I help you? That's an hour out of your day, maybe 3 hours out of your week, depending on your team size. Totally worth it. Yeah, like 100%. Like, you either have to be there and be that person, or you have to have the people in place to be able to replace you and be there for what the team needs.
That's great.
It's a great question, Andy, because I every business owner is going to be a little different. Even when you're in the CEO role, you got to lead, man. You got to lead. Like, the leadership starts with you. Your business is doing well because of your leadership, or it's not. Like, everything stems from you. I'm a firm believer in that. Like, if the business isn't going well, it's not your team's fault. It's your fault. And if the business is going well, yes, it's because of the team, but it's also because of you. Like, I'm just a firm believer in that. Like, everything starts and dies with the leader.
I a million percent agree with that. It's so funny talking to friends or family, you know, at their workplace. And if something's going wrong with the middle manager, they're in some, you know, tight situation, some drama. And it's always like, well, it must be the leader of that organization that's stemming from. And a lot of times people's reaction is like, well, no, the president's fine, whoever it is. But then you start to dig into it, and eventually it always shows its face. It all rolls downhill, and it's so important to. I mean, to your point too, you don't have to be in the office every day. If you can hire somebody, either an internal top producer who's looking to stretch their wings and go to that next level, and you're like, hey, how'd you like if I bumped you up to 60,000 a year base, plus I'm going to give you overrides on the team production, and I just need you to hold it down and hold these numbers down. I mean, the right person will jump on that internally. So you might already have that person, and they're just waiting. They're waiting to grow and graduate to the next level, or maybe you go out and hire them. There's probably some agents on here today that they own Airbnbs and they got to tend to those, or they've got a cleaning business, or they've got whatever else going on in their life. So by all means, yeah, if you get the right leadership in place, for sure.
I think that's the key. And that's where I've really grown as a leader is just how can I delegate and empower and hire the right people that are going to be better at me at the things that I don't even necessarily like to do. Now, that comes back to time, money, and skill. So it is going to take a little bit of money to be able to replace yourself. And that comes with time in the business. And sometimes as an early on business owner, you're going to have to do some things that you don't necessarily want to do. Like when I remember when I started, like I was the janitor, I was going out and getting groceries. I was obviously still selling. I was a producer. I was meeting with customers. I was the community liaison. As you grow your book of business and you have additional revenue, you have the ability to then hire people to take over the jobs or the positions that you need help out with that you really don't like, or maybe you're not good at. And so that's where I think the balance is like, how can I generate enough revenue? Maybe I have to do the things that I don't want to do right now early on in my career, but over a 3, 5, 10-year time frame, this is the vision I have for my business. This is the vision I have for myself. And these are the steps along the way and the amount of money I have to make to be able to get there. And so I think it's just really having that vision in sight and then building the team to be able to support that vision along the way.
I appreciate that perspective on it, like being able to take a step back and really just break it down and say, like, I can get there. I just need to map it out and follow those steps instead of just being lost in the business and having a trajectory. I think that's awesome.
This has been fantastic. I've taken so many really good takeaways away from this. Andy, thank you again for your expertise today, brother. I enjoyed the conversation.
You as well, Michael. Thank you so much.